You are listening to the Red Roots podcast.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
It's been a long time, man. I was just saying it feels like it's been like 6 months, no?
It does feel like it's been a long break.
How long is it? It feels like, Annalie's going to say it feels like it's been about 3 weeks, which is exactly 3 or 4 weeks. How long has it been? 4 weeks? It's like a month?
That. Maybe 5, just over.
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while. So we're back.
We're back.
Everybody have a good Christmas. See, this is the problem with going so far. You talk about stuff that feels like it's so long ago. You guys have a good Christmas.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was like 2 weeks ago, right? Over 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, like 3 weeks ago.
It was good. I love Christmas. It's always a good Christmas. So
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, no, it was good. I was with my family in Santa Cruz. So just had a barbecue and went for a swim.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it's nice.
nice.
Nice way to have Christmas.
What did you guys eat? When you say barbecue, what is that, and what does that include?
Steak, chicken, sausages.
Oh yeah, like just a little bit of everything. Yeah. Who cooks?
My uncle.
Oh yeah. Did you help?
Yeah, I
swam.
Stood nearby, keeping him company.
He chatted. You did that.
Yeah. That's my level of helping.
Yeah. What about you? How was you? I mean, I know what you did, but just you care to share with the people?
Yes. Yeah. I went to say yes, sure, and then it came out yes. It was nice. We do our traditional wake up in the morning, pray, read together, but this year was the first year we didn't read the birth of Jesus story out of a children's Bible. We actually read it from a regular, grown
Bible.
Yeah. And it blows my mind every time I think about how big the girls are getting,
Yeah.
So this year for Christmas, when we went shopping, it was like I walked into a toy store, several, and I was like, my kids don't want any of this. I don't know what to get them now. And you walk in to buy them clothes, and it's like, oh, they don't want a T-shirt with Minnie Mouse on it anymore, or I don't know, Barney. I mean, nobody their age wants Barney, but I couldn't think of anything.
4 years prior to their age, but no. I mean, yeah, they change a lot. Like, I think I'm anti-toy. I think you know that or whatever. I'm not anti-toy. Let me say that. Like, if somebody gives my kid a toy and says here, like, I'm not like, oh, you can't play with that and bury it in the backyard. Like, I'm not that, But I'm not really big on buying toys. I don't know. I'm not. It's not. Again, I'm not. I guess I'm not like prohibiting it, but I'm just not. I'm not a huge fan of like spending money on toys because they don't play with them. Like that's the main thing. And like like I was talking to someone about this, and they were like, "Well, you play with toys when you were a kid." I was like, "Yep, sure did," but I did not have. There was no internet, and laptops, and cell phones, and tablets. There was none of that stuff. And so it's like, just the way you grow up is different. Your dependency on these little. I mean, I was older than them playing with G.I. Joes, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But now, if I grew up today, like, I'm not playing with G.I. Joes and I'm 10. Like,
I think that's why parents get their kids toys, because they don't want them to be dependent on the screen all the time, laying in the bed and, just kind of on their phone the whole time.
So instead of doing this, you can lay in the bed, like, playing with your toys instead.
Yeah, or play on the floor, or, invite friends over. Like yesterday, the girls had 3 of the boys in the neighborhood over.
Little buttercream gang.
and the girls brought their Barbies out, and the boys were like all into playing with the Ken Barbies,
Well, because they don't have, because where we live in, so they don't have that perception of like, oh, these are the male Barbie figures. They just see the boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday, you like, what is this called when you do this? Like
fist bump.
Fist pumped.
Fist bumped.
Oh.
This is a fist pump. This Tiger Woods fist bump is when you bump your fist.
One of the boys, because he had a black Ken. Yeah.
Well, his name is probably not Ken. But anyway.
What would you call him?
I don't know. Go ahead.
Tyrone? Shout out to my father-in-law.
Go ahead.
So he fist bumped one of the kids because he had a black Ken.
Oscar.
And one of the other boys was like, oh, switch with me. It was like cool that he had the black one, so the other kid wanted
I was
to
just messing with him because like they just have no context, no context on like all my little jokes and stuff, and so I just do it. The girls laugh because they know and so like I do it. They don't. I always say this stuff because they don't have any type of like bearing on. They just don't. They have no. I mean, they know what I'm saying, but they don't understand like what I'm like talking about. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's cute.
yeah, so we had good Christmas, good New Year. Speaking of New Year, this is 2021, and I think that's what we want to talk about a little bit today, at least. What's going on? What's happening? What are your expectations for this year? I know we all kind of have some plans. Your plans are probably the only ones that are secure. Everybody else's plans are probably subject to crashing or to being crashed. So yeah, you can go first because you have the solid plans.
Yeah,
You have the first part of your plan is solid.
yeah. Well, I hope so. The plan is to leave on the 25th of February to fly back to the UK, pending travel restrictions and airlines going bust and all of that stuff. But if none of that happens, I'll be back in the UK on the 26th of February. Do 10 days of quarantine. I'm in the country still in quarantine anyway, so I then have to quarantine on top of that.
Yeah.
So the first month or so will probably just be at home in quarantine, spend time with family, walking my dog, that kind of thing. And then hopefully
living the English life.
Yeah. Hopefully by April sort of time, end of March, beginning of April, things will start opening back up. And I can focus more on fundraising, visiting churches if they're reopening. I guess the advantage of churches not reopening is I can get around to more churches via Zoom in this period. The disadvantage of that is it's harder to raise money via Zoom because people find it easier to say no online rather than when you see them in person.
Just one X away from saying no.
Exactly.
One red button.
Sorry, connection.
Leave.
Connection cut out. But so yes, then spend a few months fundraising, doing all the necessary things, and then hopefully getting back as soon as I can, whenever I can, whatever that might look like. A lot of it just depends on vaccines, travel restrictions.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, and if this is, I guess it's personal information. I don't know if you don't answer this fine, but you have plans to get the vaccine when you're back, or like, because there's so much in the air. That's why I'm asking. I'm not being I am being nosy, I guess, but.
Yeah.
But because the travel stuff and whatever, so yeah.
I mean, there's so many contrary opinions of when someone like me might be able to get the vaccine.
Oh, that's right.
Because so I did the estimating test. I've told you guys this already.
Yeah, that's what I'm laughing.
I did the estimating test of what my position in the queue is to get the vaccine. I put in all my details, and it said there are between 25 and 36 million people ahead of me in the queue. So it's going to be a while
coming up.
Yeah. So I'm not putting any dates in the calendar just yet. But I mean, the vaccine rollout is going quicker than most people expected in the UK. They're getting through. The target was 2 million a week, but they're going over that at the moment. They've turned everything into vaccine centres, like football stadiums are vaccine centres, schools are vaccine centres, churches are vaccine centres. So everything's vaccine centres. Yeah. So, and there's some reports that some people aren't turning up for their appointments, and so other people are just walking into the doctor's appointment at the end of the day, just going to the doctor's appointment and being like, "Hey, have you got any spare vaccines going that people haven't turned up for?" And if there are, then people are just getting them. They're just walking in off the street getting them. Yeah. So there are ways of getting vaccines, but yeah, that's the difficulty. Is it's ideally, I would like to get the vaccine before coming back, but if they're saying, hey, look, you probably might not get it until the beginning of 2022, then if travel restrictions allow me, I'll come back here.
And get the Russian vaccine?
Probably, yeah, I'll come back here, do 6 months, then fly back to the UK for a week, get the vaccine, and fly back again.
It's worth it over getting the Russian vaccine.
So the biggest up in the air is the return date. I've got an ideal date in my head, but practically as well, I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. So, but if things continue at the rate they're going, I mean, you're 15 weeks out from a vaccine. I mean, it's like 3 months, 3.5 months, or something like that. Which it may even go up, faster because of more whatever. But I mean, which isn't. I mean, honestly, isn't terrible. It just when it's in terms of 30 million people in front of you, like it just feels like it feels terrible.
I did want to say, like, one of the most effective ways I feel that we fundraise is the way Ramon does it. And it's not a strategy of his; it's just kind of who he is. But it's most of the time like just building connections with the leaders of the church, the pastor, and even if you can't sit with a missions board at a church, you can go out to lunch with the pastor or one of the deacons or the elders, somebody, or the head of the missions department, whatever. And
That's not how I fundraise. Those are just my friends.
I know that what I mean. It's like that's. I'm saying in his case, I don't know who his pool of supporters or potential supporters are, and so I was just assuming they were all church leaders. I could be very wrong. So, but yeah, it's. I actually don't think it's a disadvantage if you can't go and visit a bunch of churches. It is helpful still, because when you do go to a bigger church setting, you get bigger donations most of the time, one-time donations, which is helpful with the traveling costs and, all of that.
It's just like everything else this year, though. You just got to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's frustrating because, I personally think the best way to fundraise is being there. Everybody's together. And like they get to hear all your stuff. Like, is the ambiance like it's just different. And then like sometimes the pastor will give you like a kind of like he introduces you, so it's like like oh yeah they're on the same page and whatever. Even if he doesn't give you like this huge speech, like it doesn't really matter because he introduces you, which is his vote of confidence.
Yeah, through association with the pastor, it builds credibility with the audience.
It's not even the pastor like as an individual, but like it's like this guy is saying he's letting him get in front of the church, so. You automatically, without even processing, you see the person that's legit. Yeah. So that is obviously the easiest way. But it is what it is, man. It is what it is. There are other ways to do it. You just got to figure it out because I think we say it's the easiest way because that's the way that it's always worked, which doesn't mean that it's not the easiest way. But now things are changing, man, with Zoom and all that stuff, and was it Google, whatever Google's is, their group talk thing or whatever. I forget what it's called. It has a name. Facebook has that as well. So you have these things, and there's more people now that are plugged into these things than before. Like they didn't know how to use them before, and now like people are somewhat savvy with using Zoom. For the most part, at least getting on and interacting and stuff like that. Like, so I don't know. Things have changed. And so I think as to where 2 years ago, had you been like, all right, we're going to do a Zoom call with everybody from the church, I think most people wouldn't have come. And because they just don't, it's too much like work or whatever. Yeah. And then it wouldn't have, but now I think people have gotten a rhythm and like using this different stuff. And I know that it's not equally as effective. But I think it's a lot more effective than what it used to be. Yeah. And so it's just kind of navigating that stuff and trying to figure out because is it going to work? We don't know. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like when they did mask mandates and stuff like that. It's like, is it going to work? We don't know, but let's, like everybody's still trying it and stuff. And so, it's just the time it is. I wanted to go to the States this year as well. I was supposed to go last year. And then this year I actually wanted us to go as a family. And anyways, it's just, I don't know what's going on. We don't have they're obviously getting the vaccine in the States. Here, we ain't getting the vaccine. I wouldn't even honestly. I don't even have this type of authority over you. But if you're like, I think I'm gonna just get the Russian vaccine. I'm like, no, you're not. I'm gonna call your mother. We're gonna you're not getting. That's the vaccine that we have here. Our government here bought 5.6 million doses of the Sputnik 5. 5? Yep. 6, 5.
Number 5.
Simon can't even hold it in his lap.
Yeah, because first of all, it's named after a satellite. Like this is, and then Simon, his point the other day was, what happened to the first 4?
Yeah. He just released Sputnik 5.
Didn't even hear about him, right?
3 or 4.
Yeah. What happened to? And then third, like the president doesn't even want to take it. Like Vladimir Putin won't take it. Like so. Bro, I don't know way, man.
So maybe that's why one of our church members wrote me asking if this vaccine is going to alter her genetics.
Absolutely. It will absolutely alter your genetics. Like, this is the thing, is like, there's all these conspiracy theories and stuff about the vaccine. And depending on which vaccine you're talking about, they're probably false. But you can tell me almost anything about a Russian vaccine. Matter of fact, that thing is so untrustworthy that the conspiracy theory would be that it works. Like, it works. Like, a little bit crazy, guy.
Me.
Like, yeah. Like, nah, all jokes aside, this is not a realistic option. So, yeah, for me, like, to travel, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what that looks like, or I know that I know that at some point you're going to need the vaccine to get into different countries, and I get that. So we don't have the privilege to be anti-vaccine or like. We have the privilege, I think, of waiting, but it definitely costs us something. As to where if we were living in Miami, it wouldn't. I mean, I guess you could say we're at risk or whatever, but like it doesn't. You know what I mean? It doesn't. It's like not like you can't see your family if you don't get, or you can't go whatever. You can't go home or whatever to whatever the country you call home, whatever. I don't know. You can't get it, but like now, like we can't travel. We won't be able to travel without it. I think now. You might need it already to get into the United States.
Oh, really?
I think so. But then I know that Bolivia is going to require it as well. So even if the United States was like, oh, you can come in, you're a citizen or whatever, we understand you want to get the vaccine here and not the Sputnik 17. And so, that would make sense. But then equally like, okay, but now it's time to go back home to Bolivia. And it's like, oh, no, we don't. Because they're not going to be as open like, oh, you're a citizen and blah, 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 So I don't know. It's just, I was talking to Josh Carmody, one of our supporting pastors the other day, one of our good friends. And, we were just talking about that. It's like just how polarizing all the information is and stuff. And like, it's hard to figure stuff out. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to make that plan this year to go there. Even though I have plans, I have the idea of going this year. But I don't have solid plans because I don't want to. I mean, what if I can't go? And so kind of keeping that up in the air and stuff. But I need to go. I need to fundraise for sure. I need to just not just fundraise, but just touch bases. We talk again online, but, just be around, sit and talk, have dinner or whatever in front of our supporting churches. And I need to get a new camera and stuff as well, which is a whole different thing. So a bunch of different stuff that we need to travel for, but we'll see. So go ahead.
No, I was just saying, our girls too are just chomping at the bits to want to go and travel and visit their grandparents and their cousins, and they've done really well considering that they have been in the house since last year, pretty much. I mean, short of a year. They
haven't gone to school in a year.
Yeah, so they just pretty much stayed here. The furthest, anytime Roman just hops on a motorcycle to go buy soda at the store, they want to hop on and go with them.
Like I park my motorcycle outside my door, and then at night, I just bring it in and we park it right inside the door or whatever, just to, obviously don't leave it out and stuff. And so last night I went out to get it to bring it in, and like Jalen pops up in the window. Can I go? I was like, where am I going? I don't know. I was like, dude, I'm just bringing the motorcycle in. I mean, you can come, But we went out yesterday. I took him out. We had a good time, And so, but yeah. Anyway, so okay, you're gonna travel. You're going to UK, see your. I don't know, say it in English. I don't know what I was gonna say in Spanish. One way or the other, you're going to the UK.
Yep.
If everything goes smoothly, you can come back.
Yep.
I was leaving it open for you to what are the rest of your plans for the?
Come back and carry on from where.
Carry on.
from where whatever things look like here. If Bolivia's still in a lockdown, then I probably won't come back. Yeah. But if things are still open back up, then I'll come back. And then carry on with working with the church, taking on the children's stuff, working in the leadership of that, and then the football school as well, whatever that looks like. When I'm back, carrying on with that. And then just, I guess, picking up from where we left off, trying to just continue to grow everything, get a bit serious about everything. Push forward in different areas and not setting ourselves up for the best end of year that we can do.
Do you feel like when you come back you're gonna be like and it's gonna take like kind of a jump start to get back into things, or do you feel like you're gonna come back like rubbing your hands together, like ready to like dive in again?
I think I'll be ready to dive back in again. Again, a lot of it would depend on just like what the situation is like. But let's paint the nice picture that everything will be slightly more secure by then, and things will be open and running as kind of they were at the back end of last year here. I think I'll be ready to get back into it, because the difficulty now is it's like for the last 6 months or even like the last year, I've always had like an end date in the back of my mind, and so you're always kind of semi-thinking about that. And so anytime you're kind of thinking, should I start this or should I do that? You're always thinking, well, I've only got 2 months left, I've only got 1 month left, I've only got 4 weeks left. So it'd be nice to like you come back and be like, okay, no, I'm back here. I'm not leaving for at least another 2 years or so.
Yeah, and you can just
And okay, let's start projects now. Let's get things going again. Let's push on. So I think that will make things easier.
Yeah,
and help to get back going and into things as well. And it's like you're not starting from scratch either. Yeah. So it's like there'll be nothing unless dramatic things happen while I'm gone and different people are in charge of different things. I'll be coming back and people will hopefully be in the same position. So pick up from relationships which have already formed. And just carry on from there and push on.
Good stuff. So it's you're in a year of like transitioning kind of, and then, I mean, even transitioning back will be, and just, it's nothing new, but yeah, like you said, it goes from like now it's like, man, okay, when do I leave? You know, kind of that, and making sure you're closing things down right, to coming back to being like kind of free to just focus on that and stuff. So yeah, that'll be good. That'd be good.
I remember when we first started looking into becoming missionaries and reading like ministry books and missions books. And one of the main things that everyone always mentioned was to be flexible. You're going to have to be flexible because your plans are almost always going to change. Yeah. I'm just glad that I'm able to do that. I just feel like with my personality, I'm able to do that. But just that I even listened to that.
Yeah. No, I mean. Are you so? I haven't talked to you about this, but we should read some more community development books while you're gone and stuff, and kind of go through and like trade off information and stuff. Is that something?
Yeah, that's something we hope to get started in the coming year.
Yeah, so because we've been, and I think I talked about this last time, so we've been kind of like into this thing called Christian community development, and it's a whole. We've been reading some of the books and stuff, and you read like one of John Perkins' books, and I read the other one, and we're kind of doing. I mean, there's more than two, but we're kind of doing like that or whatever. It'd be cool to get back to that thing. Yeah, because I don't know. Obviously you got family and you got your fundraising stuff, whatever, but you might be in a space to be able to kind of like be not in it. Yeah. And like process the information better. I don't know. But yeah. So what about you?
Me, I actually just here within the last couple weeks started, and then I think it's through conversations with you guys, just started realizing how little importance I placed in in being a leader, and I never saw or really wanted to see myself as a leader who influences other people, but like just realizing that whether you want to be one or not, everybody's influencing someone in some kind of way. Got that from a message on Sunday that some great preacher preached. So
you passed the line at the last part, but you did get it on Sunday, but the great preacher part.
And it just challenged me, because I thought I can just float on by with little responsibility outside of my household. You have so much at home, you just like, oh, Ramon's got this here in the church area or in the missions area, but realizing that I'm still being watched, I'm still being held accountable by people and by God. And so this year I want to grow in my leadership and ability to confidently lead in a biblical way. And so I would realize that comes with addressing a lot of my insecurities and why I don't want to speak in public, why I don't want to frequently invite people to the house or go out with them. Like, I don't know why sometimes, but I know that those are issues that doesn't promote community. And so I need to dig in a little bit deeper. And then on top of that, just really, really buckle down on my biblical knowledge so that I can counsel. So I was reading in Titus last night that the older women in church, even though I'm not elderly, I'm one of the more, I hate using this word, but spiritually mature. And so naturally people will come to me for prayer or for counsel or advice or whatever.
Yeah, and they should, that's literally the way it's set up.
Yeah, and so just looking at the expectation of the older Christian woman, a woman in faith, my responsibility is to teach the younger woman in kindness and purity and family and loving and all of that. And so I'm like, I'm not equipped for that. So I'm not doing my biblical duty. And so if I'm not doing that, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I got a lot to work on.
I think like when it comes to leadership, and it goes both ways. We either fall into two different categories of people when it comes to the viewpoint of leadership. Their viewpoint, is that a thing? point of view, flipped it. Point of view on leadership. And I think as some people are very aware that I should not be leading alone. And then there's other people so some people that say I should not be leading alone. I should not be leading alone. And so they're very dependent on the people around them, which is, nothing wrong with that. But on the opposite end, a lot of those same people, not all, but a lot of the same people, they know that we shouldn't be leading alone. But when they see someone else that's not intentionally leading alone, they're okay with them leading alone. You know what I mean? And so they don't have this, when we see people doing something, like you said, oh, you got it. And so we don't help out as much in areas that we could, and support and speak and share opinions, especially when it's within a trusted, because sometimes opinions are a bit much from people that don't even want to work, you know what I mean? Yeah. But when it's from a trusted group of people who are a part of leadership, yes, all these things have value and stuff. It doesn't mean they're always going to agree, but they all have value and stuff. And so I think that's a thing is we say oh, I know I can't lead alone. I can't lead alone. And we're right. I shouldn't lead alone. But then when you see someone else leading alone and you feel like they're doing a good job, it's oh, they got it. But on the other side, you have people who think they can lead alone and think that no one else can lead alone. You know what I mean? And so it's they're both out of line or whatever. And so it's just understanding that, we're not really called to do anything alone and by ourselves. Yeah, you can sweep the floor by yourself. I don't mean tasks, but I mean just life stuff and leadership stuff is. And again, it doesn't mean either cowering down from responsibility, because I think that's the thing too. Is I have to make decisions on behalf of the church, and I will ask your guys' opinion, but I won't be well, decide, Simon. Are we gonna close? I'll definitely ask your opinion, maybe several times or whatever, or whoever. But I am accepting. I have not got there yet, but I'm accepting that this is my role. And at the end of the day, yes, it is my job to gather information and even to invite people in to help lead and support, because no one's as smart as they think they are, but equally no one's as dumb as they think they are either. You know what I mean? Or it goes. And so it's just take advantage of the people that are in your life to be able to pour into you and help you, advance forward and make the right decision. But equally understanding that at the end of the day, it is your responsibility, but there's people that want to help you kind of do the responsible thing and support you. And if you take all this into account and you make a decision or do something and it turns out wrong, then those people are more likely to encourage you and whatever, if they're good people. Some people will just and drift off or whatever, but that's not really. But yeah, they're more likely to encourage you as opposed to where you make a decision by yourself and and then it's a dumb decision. Then everyone's we do this together, then we support one another together. You do it by yourself, then you are absolutely responsible for it. And so it's and that's just not the way that the church is designed anyway. And so I think just stepping up in leadership doesn't always mean having to step up on the stage and be all right, guys, time for me to preach. You know what I mean? It's not even that. It's just it's leading from where you are and being influential. And that's what you're saying, right? We've been talking about in church. It's Jesus says you are the salt of the earth. You are light of the world. He doesn't say you will be. He doesn't say I want you to be. He doesn't go into a trance and say in the year 2028, you're going to be. It's not a prophecy. It is not a hope. It's not a prophecy. It is a fact. You are the salt of the world. And then he goes on and talking about how ridiculous is it that salt isn't salty? It can lose, in this time it can lose its saltiness, but it's worthless at that point. Or a light that you cover it up. Why do you have a light then if you're going to cover it up? It doesn't make sense. And he says, a city on a hill can't be hidden. You cannot hide that. And why would you even want to? That's his thing. It's so you are influential. You're called to be influential. But through him and who he's made us to be in the transformational power of the gospel that's taking place in our life, you are influential now. So influence, be who you are, Yeah. And so, grabbing a hold of that helps us have more, when I say self-confidence, I don't mean confidence in self alone. I mean confidence in who God has created us to be and where he's placed us in our lives, and be able to walk in that and exercise that and be faithful in that area, whatever it may look like. And so, and so at that point, you can lead from the back. It's like backseat driver, but in a good way. You don't always have to have the title and the name. You can be influential but faithfulness to God causes you to be influential. And so, that's a good goal for this year, I think. And I hope that with that and with you taking that role, I hope that becomes kind of a normal or expectation for other women in our church.
Yeah.
So we can, reach more young women and obviously men too. That's, but I'm just talking about what you said in that verse, older women or elderly women, or what does it say?
Older women.
Yeah, older women, which you are older than the Natalias and the Lisvan, and so like there's a lot of young women around that not all of them even come to the church, but just around that need to be influenced. And so, we just need people to step into that. I want to be careful with this word, but it is dominion that God has given. It's like, I don't mean that in like the way that it's used sometimes.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, it absolutely is like God placed these people in your care and in your reach of influence or whatever, so that you can reach them. And so, but we will not do that until we are like, oh, God has called me to be influential. Mm-hmm. God has called me to lead and to disciple, and go deep with these people. God has called me to do that, and you don't have to be arrogant about it. It's really a grace thing. It's like, man, God is so gracious to have called me to do that when I don't deserve it.
I think like the way we were taught in churches, at least growing up, is that you go to church to be better, to improve, to be a better, you started off as person A, and by the time you are finished with this journey, this process of salvation, you are person B, And so the whole time you go to church, you're focused on healing from my mess, healing, reconciliation in my family, which are all very important things. But I think that I don't know how the Bible at what point it intersects where you are a work in progress, but you're also play a role in God healing and reconciling in other people's lives too. Because sometimes we think, I'm a mess, I can't help anyone. But some people stay there all of their lives, you know. But realizing that we don't just come to church for ourselves, like like you've been teaching to the church all along. Like, we're a community, we're a family of believers, and we're supposed to be in each other's lives, involved in these everyday processes. But I think it's like ingrained in us from the beginning. You come to church because you want to be better.
Yeah, and I think the concept is very natural, because everything else we do, we go to get something.
Yeah.
You don't go to a restaurant to cook. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all right, guys, get out the way. I paid you, $29.99, and I'm gonna make this meal. Like, no, that you literally go so that you don't have to cook. You go to school to get an education, or when you're in school, you go to be with your friends, but you're still receiving stuff. You go to you go to work. The only reason you work is because you have to get paid, and so you're going to get paid. And so we have the expectation of everywhere that we go, whenever we walk out the doors of the house, you're going to receive something. Yes, it costs you something always, but you're going to receive something. And you reluctantly give your money at a restaurant. If the restaurant came and was like, hey, we're going to give you this steak for free, you're not going to pay. You're going to be like, oh, I'll take it for free, because that's what you want. If you go to college and they're like, hey, we're going to give you a full scholarship, you're not going to be like, no, you know what? I'm not going to take that. I'll pay you the whatever thousands of dollars that, you're not going to do that. You're going to take it for free. So you're even though it does cost you something, you only do that because you have to, And at church, I think we have the same thing, is we come to receive. And then when, people put pressure to serve, we only do it because we have to. And so if somebody's like, you know what, you don't have to do children anymore, like, you know what I mean? And so but it shouldn't be like that. This is not, everything is so consumerist and whatever, which, that's a different topic, and it is what it is. But the church, we have to kind of preserve the sanctity and the holiness of what the church is. And it is a family. It's not just a group of friends. It is not a monologue Sunday. I mean, there are monologues that take place, unfortunately, whatever. But equally, this is bigger. It's much bigger than what happens on Sunday. Like, this is a family. It's a family unit. And that doesn't mean, hey, ho, we're a family. Look, and posing for pictures and then not seeing each other. Like, this is the depths of the nastiness of life. These are the people that I can depend on to pray for me, to pray with me, to take me to the throne room of God. Like, to take my petitions and my needs and even my errors before God and correct me, convict me, help me, lift me up, grace, mercy, all these things that I need, my daily bread, the things that I need to live, hope, give me, peace, give me joy, all these things that you need on a daily basis. This group of people is supposed to be a group of people that loves me enough to help me, to help, like, They don't provide it for me, but they know where the provider is. And so when I'm weary and I'm leery and I'm doubtful, then it's you guys who say, no, you can't be like that. Let's pray. God, even praying in our place, in my place, because when I'm incapable of focusing really on God. Okay. When my faith is weak, then that's when the church's faith is strong, and so on and so forth. And so it's like, it is very, but again, that's still me receiving. But on the other end of that, like, that's me looking for opportunities. How is Rudy today? How really, what's going on in his life? Hey, let's pray. You know what? Let's pray. Do you need money? Do you need, whatever? Do you need to just go, like, what do you need? And me, like, searching and providing for that without it being like this, a burden on us. Because I think that's the thing, is we do have people in churches that are like service center, but a lot, it just feels like a burden. And like, oh, it's a lot. But it's a burden because it's not reciprocated. And so it's supposed to be this group, and there's always going to be somebody that doesn't, because there's new people coming in all the time, whatever. But equally, the core group of people, it should be reciprocating. Like, oh, you're broke and you don't have anything. What do you need this month? You need some chicken, some bread? Okay, you got it. Well, next month, I'm like, maybe I'm not broke, but I don't have anyone to cut my grass. It shouldn't be like, oh, man, good luck. You know what I mean? You got a weed eater and a lawnmower or whatever sitting up there. Like, like it's literally like not even looking to help one another, just being that thing for one another and kind of joining with together to one another to grow up in that. And so, and then that is essentially the most lightiest and saltiest thing that we can do is have this love and support for one another. That's like just unchanging, immovable love. Like, there's nothing you can do to make me stop not only saying that I love you and care for you, but serving you and actively actually loving you and caring for you, And so that's what's supposed to be what the church is about. But we're a little far away from that, but just as a whole, not even just our church specifically, but as a whole. Like, it's a beautiful picture when you look at it, when you step back and look at what it's supposed to be. But then equally, okay, like when it's time to dig in, it's a lot of work. It's not our job, it's God's job, right? But like, God sends us to be responsible and to make decisions and change, And so it's like, and then like the verse of like, what's bound in what you bind on earth, I bind in heaven, and what you free on earth, I free in heaven. Like, where two or three are gathered together. Like, he's talking about church discipline. Like, so this is like what you guys decide between two or three of you. If someone's in sin and they're unrepentant, if like you decide to remove them from, like, like, this is not. So it's not just like this thing of like, we're just praying for a new house. Well, there's three of us praying for a new house, so he's going to do it. That's neither here nor there, but that's not really. I mean, I'm not saying that God doesn't respect community prayers, but that's not really what that verse is about. The verse is about like the hard stuff of our responsibility in church, and Jesus showing like his support for us, of those of us who are in him and like loving him and pursuing him, his support for us and our decisions in the church. And so definitely depend on the Holy Spirit, but equally like we have responsibilities and stuff here. So
yeah.
But yeah.
Do you think that like you were saying, like, you don't want to, like, we immediately, you become the salt and the light of the earth when you come into faith and believe in Christ, depend on him. Do you feel, because people are not going to feel like salt and light, they're not going to, so do you just encourage like practicing actions until you're fully convinced?
No, I mean, I think wasn't expecting the call. It just jumped out. Sorry. I think a lot of times we focus on doing more when it's not really about doing more, it's about being more.
Right.
Like, God has created us to be more. Okay, now what does that look like?
Right.
And so the fruit of the Spirit is a very clear picture of what that looks like, of being salt and light and whatever. And so it's like, I don't want to say automatic, but it kind of is. Like, man, focus on your relationship with God. Like, be strong in the Lord. Like, yes, then there are disciplines of like, get your prayer life in order. Yes, study the word. Like, you do this, and like, yes, and then make the effort to be nice. Like, right, there's an effort of like being nice and stuff too, and it's not as simple as that though. I mean, it is, but it isn't, because then there are moments when you want to just lose your mind on somebody, and like, and you're rightfully so in doing it. But then in that moment, that's where you start to see growth. Because the thing is, everybody says like, I'm growing, but they haven't gone through any adversity.
Yeah.
You really don't know how much you've grown. You may know that you're growing, but you don't know how much you've grown until you face adversity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like not knowing how much you really love, and so you have to love someone that doesn't love you.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you see that you can do that when you couldn't do it before, that's where you start to see the transformation. And it's inspiring because you're like, man, you feel stronger. Like this person that gets on your last nerve, and they probably deserve to be slapped upside the head, but you found the power to not, you know what I mean? To not, I mean, you know what I mean? But I mean, self-control, like, you know, I think that's a big evidence is this self-control and stuff, man. And I mean, that's just one of them, but you see these things and you see your reaction to stuff, how it changes. But that's because you're rooted in the word. You're rooted in your relationship with God. And the more you do, we were talking about this yesterday, the more we do it, the more you learn to enjoy. Prayer, yes, starts off as a discipline, but it's never meant to be that. It only has to be a discipline to get us back to the original purpose of what prayer is. And it's walking, talking, and enjoying all that God is and what he is for me and my dependence on him and just being in communion with him. Again, because we're so far off in a sinful world and we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, so on and so forth, then we tend to not see, we may do it, but we don't see the necessity of prayer 100%. We see unanswered prayers and then we start questioning it. But we don't go back to the basics of just like enjoying God and all that he is and just the dependence on him and just having the joy of literally just speaking to the creator of the universe. Like that really, it should be enough, like more than enough. And the peace and the joy and the hope that comes from your time in that spent with, combined with your time in the word spent on just like reading what he has and just these 66 books inspired by God himself, written to us, but with him at the center of how life fits into all this and stuff. That combined with just like really just spending time with him, like it's transformative, and it gets to a place to where I don't want to say it's not a discipline, but you know what I mean. It's not like, oh, I gotta pray. Then it's like you are looking forward to prayer time. You are having a long meeting at work, and like instead of being like, and I'm not demonizing Netflix, obviously. But like, when you're like, man, I just want to go spend some time with Jesus after it's just a long day. I just want to because you seek that as your peace. You don't say, I can't wait to get home and have a big glass of wine to take the edge off or to watch my favorite show. I'm not even demonizing any of these things, but I'm just saying you look to the right place for your peace. And so it's like, man, I'm gonna get out of here. So when I get out of here, I just need to spend 5 minutes I just need to remind myself to really depend on God, the creator of the universe, the lover of my soul, my savior, savior of my soul, my rescuer, like everything that he is to me, my sustainer, my provider. I just want to go and spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 hours, whatever, depending on your whatever. But of just really spending time with him, me and him, no one else. And I can just get recentered, refocused. And it's like, it's life-changing. And so when that becomes a habit, like then all the problem with the salt and light conversation, there's nothing wrong with the passage, but we just say this stuff, salt and light. So people are like out and they're working their butts off and like whatever. And in the midst of trying to be salt and light, they're being negligent of their relationship and dependency on God. And so I think we've all fallen into that trap, right? Of so busy trying to be effective that we don't realize that we're just the hammer. If you have a hammer, it doesn't say, all right, let me get all these nails in. It's there. And the hammer allows itself, it doesn't even have a choice to allow itself but to be used by the carpenter or whoever's using it. And it does a good job. But so I think we take a little bit too much responsibility to do that type of work. And we fluster ourselves trying to be salt and light. When it's like, man, plug into Jesus, create a dependency on him. That is the first. And then it literally flows from that. The transformation that takes place inside of your life that Jesus is constantly doing inside of us flows out into every part of our life. And then the salt and light comes. Because now we talked about Sunday, integrity. Now you're a man or a woman of integrity. So now when everybody at work is doing something or when the boss leaves, like everybody kind of quits working and is fooling around, you're still working. You ain't snitching on everybody, like dry snitching when they come back. You're not doing that, but like you're faithful and working. And so even there are some people in the job, they're like, oh, that goody two, whatever. I don't know what people say nowadays. Goody two shoes is probably not it. But but when but the other people are like, man, they feel convicted, even though they may not be believers. They feel convicted by your ability to continue on, and they're like, oh, you don't want to come over and eat these donuts? Say, oh no, I'm good. And then you just keep working. You don't have to say, oh, I'm working, you guys are playing, none of that. But your faithfulness in that, not just in that moment, but the consistency of that. Integrity is not just a moment. Integrity is a consistent way of living. And so when you're consistent in that, it does affect the other people around you, and it's salt and light. And when people first turn the lights on, sometimes it hurts your eyes. In the morning, like somebody, turn the light off, or at night, whatever, turn the light off, that's what you say. And so some people's natural reaction to that will be like, oh, turn the light off,
Yeah,
But equally, that's not your job to make them feel good. It's your job to be light and salt in the world. And so it's like, if someone's never tasted salt, I think the first bite would just be a little bit much, So it's like, oh, but then after a while, it's like, oh, okay, now when you see like, the light is good, and maybe, whatever, oh, the light helps me. Oh, I can see this in the light. I can do this in the light. So you are, and again, some people just don't want what you have. They don't, they want to live the way they want to live, but equally, that's not your job. That's the Holy Spirit's job. It's your job to live in Him. And then that lifestyle that you live produces salt and light. I mean, it is the salt and light of the earth and, world and whatever. And so now you're affecting other people. And obviously you have a message that you share. It's not just like, she's a good person. That it doesn't happen. That's a dream. He's a really good guy. I think I'll go to church Sunday. Like, what? Simon works hard. I think I want to give my life to Christ. Like, it doesn't work like that either, But so there's a message behind it. But when your message aligns with your lifestyle, that's when it really becomes powerful too, Because on the other side of it, we have people that preach, but they do all the stuff that everybody else at their job does or in their neighborhood does. And so they lack integrity. So their message is empty and with the void. But the power of the word is not in its in knowing it. It's in its application. And so when you preach the same word that you live, that's powerful, And you live. And so you affect the people around you and stuff. But it starts with your relationship with God, man. Have a relationship with God. That doesn't mean repeating a prayer after somebody or attending church on a regular basis or attending prayer meeting and singing all the songs. That doesn't mean that you have a relationship with God. That doesn't mean that. Having a those are good things. And those result from having a strong relationship with God. But those are equally disciplines that you can do apart from God. You can attend to all these things and not know God,
Right.
So it's knowing God on a personal basis and really growing in Him and your dependency in Him. And then that's when things start to produce, because we were talking about Daniel in Daniel 6 on not yesterday, 2 days ago, Sunday. And how Daniel's obedient to God, man, and God is promoting him. He's supposed to be a slave, and he interprets Nebuchadnezzar's dreams, and that he does all this stuff, and then Belteshazzar, I can't remember, I mixed the Spanish and English translation of his name, but when the hand rolled on the wall, he translates that. God is giving him these interpretations and stuff, and he's doing it. And he gets promoted because of that. So God is promoting him. And it's yay, this is what integrity in God does. And then next thing you know, he gets he's in the lion's den. Yeah, he came out of it, but everybody doesn't come out of it. But equally, he didn't know when he went in the lion's den that wasn't going to cost him his life. It just says God sent an angel to shut their mouth. It doesn't say Daniel went down and put his hands on his hips and demanded things. He didn't know, but he didn't care either. Because his integrity was about faithfulness to God, and it wasn't about getting a promotion in his job or in the kingdom of of the Medes and the Persians or in Babylonians, whatever. It wasn't about that. It was about being faithful to God. And so I think, when we live this lifestyle, I think, and it's been preached too, it's if you live like this, you will get promoted, and you might, but equally, God is not an idol giver, so He's not going to give you something that makes you self-sufficient. Mm-hmm. He's never going to do that, because Daniel, the temptation of being, wealthy and that level of self-sufficient. We see that with Solomon. Solomon's self-sufficient. So he's he writes these things, and he's kind of back and forth and all over the place or whatever. But you see, Daniel knows that these things can be snatched away. You see it with Joseph as well. These things can be snatched away. Joseph is up and down, up and down, up and down. And so the one thing he knows he can depend on is God, his relationship with God, And so when people see that in our lives of he worships God. He gets promotion every week. Well, God blesses him, but God doesn't bless me like that. But then they see tragedy hit you, and you still stay faithful in God because of your connection and your relationship that you've had with Him, because you're rooted in the Word, because you have a strong prayer life, et cetera, et cetera. They may not see those things, but they see the results of those things when tragedy hits. And so now, it wasn't until Jesus died that the Roman soldier is looking and saying, surely He was the Son of God. It wasn't until Jesus was on the cross. Jesus is running around doing all these miracles and stuff and whatever, but it wasn't until Jesus is suffering that the Roman soldier looks at him on the cross and says, surely. The dude next to him on the cross is so you see the darkest of dark people, his enemies, literal enemies, are recognizing his greatness and who he is in the midst of his suffering. And so equally, and he overcame that, and equally it reflects on us that regardless of how deep our suffering is, even unto death, he overcomes it. We get eternal life in him, et cetera, et cetera. But at that darkest moment, who he is in the midst of that moment, like everybody's like recognizing, oh, he really is God. And I think for us, it's like we can Christian, I'm rich, boats, houses, car, whatever, great. But then you live under a bridge and your faithfulness doesn't change from when you had 16 boats, which you shouldn't have 16 boats, guys. That's not faithfulness. But anyways, when you have that and your faithfulness to God doesn't change, now people were like, oh, he really is, he really is who he says he is. He really is a believer. And you see that in Job. You see that in, all Old Testament stories, New Testament as well. But there's a different context there. But in the Old Testament, you see that consistently of people living these lifestyles. And people are like, and so you see King Darius at the end is like, he kills all these guys. And he's like, he refers to Daniel's God as the living God. But there's all these other gods as options. But he refers to Daniel's God as the living God. So like, this is the one that's alive. He's not a statue. I've never seen him, but this is real. Like, not just because the lion stuff. Because when he went to search for Daniel in the lion, he thought Daniel was dead. He shouts out to Daniel and says, the living God. But it's because of Daniel's integrity and commitment to God, even in the midst of all this nasty stuff, like he's still unwilling to stop praying for just 30 days. And so like he recognizes that God is real. He has to be real. For this smart dude that I know to be that committed to him, like he has to be real. And then, because Daniel influences the king, he impacts and influences the king. And so he changes the law now. And like everybody has to worship Daniel's God. Like that's insane, the impact that Daniel has on an entire like nation that is an enemy nation, that hate his people, that have conquered his people, and they conquered the people who conquered his people. And and he's the lowest of the low, supposedly. And he's impacting literally the entire nation. And it's not even really him, but it's his it's God impacting them through him and his faithfulness and obedience to him that's rooted in the word and rooted in prayer. So so he's salt and light in the way, not by standing up on top of the kingdom and, or on top of the castle or whatever it is and saying like, you're not going to touch me. He's not doing any of that. Like, but it's who he is. It is literally who he is. He is salt of the earth. He is light of the world. And he gets that. He gets that. So he just operates and walks in that. His dependency on Jesus or on God, and God as a whole at this time, which includes Jesus, but New Testament, different stuff.
Yes, like you were saying earlier that we can lead and be influential without a title and a position.
Absolutely, but it's a cop out when we don't have that. To think that we can't lead because we don't have. We had a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago at our church. And they were essentially insinuating that they can't serve because they don't have a title or whatever. And like, you already know I had a mouthful. But I don't want people, you're never going to get a title if you can't serve without it. Like, you're never, ever going to get a title. Matter of fact, I don't give myself a title. So, why am I concerned about, like, we're a community, like, let's love each other, grow together, disciple one another, challenge one another, pray for one another, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One another, like the one another commandments. Let's do all of that for one another. Like,
it was Simon who had to convince you to stop rejecting titles.
Yeah, that's another conversation for another day.
Not rejecting it.
But so this year I guess I didn't say my part. I did all that. You see, you got me on like a different.
Well, you mentioned a little bit about wanting to travel, and you'll see how that looks. And
I did. Yeah, I was just trying to relate to Simon, But yeah, obviously we bought property this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Is it?
It's crazy exciting.
Yeah, we bought one piece of property. Man, Facebook needs to hit me back.
I was actually wondering, like, how do they do that? They send you a message
they send
in
a
your
check.
Inbox?
I don't know. They send a check. And they may send it to the donors as well, because I think that when people donated, several people were telling me that Facebook said that they won't know if their donation was matched until January something.
Okay.
And so I think they'll let them know. And they send us a check because we've got it from before. And they send you a check in the mail.
Oh, okay.
And so for whatever it is. And so when that's done, we'll know if we have enough money or don't have enough money for another piece of property. And so, yeah. So, worst case scenario, we didn't get it, but we're close. Best case scenario, we got it. So, it's all good news all around. Mm-hmm. But I'm waiting on that to raise money for the next piece of property. And after that, I want to raise that up. It needs to be, did a video the other day. If you want to see that video, you can go watch that on Red Roots YouTube channel because I don't want to re-explain all of it. But yeah, I want to just elevate the land or whatever, and then kind of, which is a kind of a project within and of itself, but then kind of go from there and see after we buy the next piece and kind of see what happens. I'm thinking about, and we've been talking about this kind of in private for a while, but starting a business first, like some type of small business to be able to kind of generate income. Because I would love in the long term, it's not, and I don't know to what percentage or whatever. I mean, 100% would be great, but at least in the long term, I would love for the community center stuff to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining, to an extent at least, or at least help. And so I was thinking possibly about like building some type of simple, like small business on the edge of property, something we can use to kind of operate, generate income, and kind of already have stuff coming in before we build other stuff. And it could just, or at least even if it doesn't generate income, we can kind of get into a rhythm. And then 2-3 years from now, it's generating income. You know what I mean? So we can get, if the next year and a half, we're like building and planning and whatever, but we don't have, like actual solid ministry stuff built, we could have that thing. And then at that time, it'll definitely be profitable. I mean, not definitely, but that's the hope or whatever. Yeah. And so I don't know. We got, there's a lot of stuff to think about and stuff. And so we're doing membership at church this year. So that's been a new thing. So I'm trying to work on that. Was going to do a membership course in March, but we just made a decision to close the church indefinitely or close the church. What is it? Suspend all services, cancel all services until further notice. Maybe it's the best way. There's some people very close to, I don't think anyone that comes to church has got it, but people very close to actually work in the same building where we're at now who have tested positive. And we have some susceptible people at our church that will come as long as the doors are open. And I don't know, I just think it's the right, it's in the city as a whole, it's trending the wrong direction, but I don't know that we're there yet to close. But our situation here as a church where we're at, we need to close until that gets under control. The problem is once that gets under control, I fear that the city, we were talking about this last night with Simon, I fear that the city will be out of control at that point. And so we'll probably just have to stay closed for a while. So, but I don't know, we're just kind of got to play that by.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because the patterns don't make sense of the numbers.
No, not at all.
I follow them daily of the numbers that they release out, and they're just they're all over the place. So the only logical reason for it is that loads of people have got it, but not everyone's getting tested for it. Mm-hmm. Not everyone's coming forward with it. That's the only logical explanation with it. Because like some days it will be like 150 plus cases, and then the next day it will be like 40, and then it'll go to like 70, then it'll go to 20, then it'll go to about 250. And it's just the numbers are just all over the place. There is no logical pattern behind it.
Supposedly the tests that we have here are pretty much trash. So it's like, the results are going to be kind of all over the place. So I don't know. It's a mess. Mm-hmm. It is a mess. That's what it is.
I was reading that it's a conversation they're having that if in the near future, if whoever tests positive, they'll just immediately be taken to a COVID facility or clinic to get treated or quarantined until they get better, and not allow them to go back home. And so I would imagine that might be a reason why some people might not, or at least going forward, I wouldn't want to get tested and test positive and they take me away and put me in a room with, no, you're not going to be able to help me. So why are you leaving me here?
Just be on my own.
I want to quarantine in my own house.
Like just build a tent, and, whatever, set up a tent and they'll sleep in that. You're better off.
Yeah. But I also know that a lot of families here live in the same room or sleep in the same rooms or share rooms with people. That's the issue, isn't it? I understand that there's not a perfect solution for it, but it's just not for me.
Yeah. We're just not prepared as a country. I mean, it is what it is. We're not prepared for something like this pandemic. I mean, not remotely close. But, yeah, so that's that. But, yeah, this should be a big year. We're supposed to talk about this year and stuff, but we got away from that and talked about Daniel. It's all good. Anything else you got to add today?
Don't think so.
It's a good comeback episode, I guess.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get in the rhythm. We want to restructure some things and do some different parts and stuff. I don't want to say too much because I don't know yet. But equally, I don't want to make promises that we're not going to follow through with.
Jalen did want me to ask if you will ever consider building a pool
No, absolutely not. Absolutely
And another
not.
thing she wanted to do was build our house on the land.
Yeah, so yeah, they told me, like, we bought the property, like it's ministry property, and they like, here comes, like the Satan. Like, we should build a giant pool. Like, I don't think our supporters, I don't think that's what they were doing it for, but they don't get it. It's just like, yeah, we built our house. Oh,
Well, what else are we gonna put on there?
yeah, they don't fully grasp the idea of what a community center is, and so like actually, but they drew out like a community plan of like things
Jalen
that
did.
they would do if they were the mayor. No, we had a conversation one day. Jalen drew out a thing a different time, and it was pretty cool, honestly.
I have a picture of it. It's pretty neat.
She put a skate park in. She put a pool in there, but like there's a skate park, there's a pool, there's like a bunch of different
A
stuff.
playground.
Yeah, like I mean, it's just stuff for people to be active and stuff. And there was a couple other things, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, smart ideas. One day we were going to the grocery store, just me and the two of them, and I asked them like, because they were complaining about the mayor, like everybody does, because our roads are absolute. It looks like
9-year-olds talking about the mayor.
if you came here and saw the roads, you would expect dinosaurs to be walking around. Like that's how far behind. It's ridiculous. And anyways, as you're weaving through all the potholes and stuff, so we're talking. They're bad mouthing the mayor. So anyways, I was like, if you were mayor, what would you do? Just kind of making conversation. And they had some incredible ideas, man. I was like shocked. I was like, what? This guy. That's how terrible he is. 9-year-olds have better ideas. 9-year-olds have better ideas than this guy. But yeah, we have elections coming up in March. Supposedly, that may be just for mayor. Excuse me, for mayor and for governor. We have elections coming up. So in March, that's another thing we have coming up this year. It's a big deal for us locally, a really big deal. So yeah, should be a good year, one way or the other. Even with pandemic stuff and whatever, we'll figure it out. Get it going. Produce more content this year again. I made that video the other day, and I made another video, and then I took one off the camera and edited it and uploaded it, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, got that, and deleted all that footage on the camera, forgetting that I made 2 videos, so I have 1 video. So anyways, that's that. I just had to share because it's still frustrated with myself.
In the video, the little puppy made his little debut.
Oh my god! Did you see it? No. I gotta show you just that
It was
part.
hilarious.
I'll show it to you right when we get off here.
It like hopped up in front of him.
No, you'll see. Like he's gonna laugh because he thinks the puppy's cute, anyways.
He is cute. Anyway.
All right. Well, I think we're good for today. You guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you had. We're late, but I hope you had a Merry Christmas. And what does it mean to have a Happy New Year? Does that mean just that day? I hope this is the best year of your life. How about that?
Yes.
And wish you much peace, joy, and faith in Jesus this year, that you grow in all those things. And so, thank you for listening. We appreciate all your love and support. We will see you next week. Provecho.